Hey all you weekend warriors and warriors out there, I'm going to show you today how to build this Harbor Freight portable garage using just one person, yourself, and with some customizations that I've made. This one on the left here has been here over a season, there's been no problems. And this one that we're looking at the right is the one we're building today. I'm going to show you how to do that. The customizations are the tarp on top, held down with paracord. And if we look in here, this is not permanently anchored. So if we look, we just use 2x4s and bricks to keep it up off the ground, and bricks to hold it down. You can use as many as you want. So all for, if I calculate it all with the leg screws and everything, it's about $210, and that's with tax included. So I'm going to show you how to do that, show you how to do it yourself, and we'll see you on the next one. This is the first time, once you've got your frame up, which is pretty easy to do. Should be straightforward. This is the first hard part, and notice you're putting on this front flap. And the key is to make sure that these straps right here do not, do not go back up into the flap. They need to be held down. So either you can put them under the L tube of the frame, or you can use a rock like I've done on this side. Sorry. Right. So I've duct taped a rock. Also just do like a really large knot or something. So the point is, when I was putting this up and hanging these straps at the top by myself, it's going to pull the strap back up to the top, you know, and you're going to want to make sure that it doesn't come back up, because it's really quite a pain to get it back out, which I learned the first time I put together one of these. So other than that, you don't need anything else for this portion to do it with a single person. So once you get this done, we start putting the ratchet straps on and tightening them up, and it should all cinch back together. And you need to make sure that these parts of the flap go around once you're tightening up, so you just adjust it as needed once you're tightening up the strap. So another thing that's helpful, that once you have your ratcheting straps on both sides, that you in order to make sure that this comes around the structure, the frame, you can, because we can't like hold up here while we're ratcheting down at the bottom. So we just use these clamps right here. If you got a pair of big clamps or something that you can clamp up there, you just pull it over the ridge, clamp it in place, and then you can start ratcheting. And if you ratchet, you should ratchet kind of evenly on each side, and make sure that, actually this one I think has one curve in it. Maybe that's correctable, yeah. But you want to make sure that there's no curves in here, so it makes it easy to ratchet. Other than that, you just ratchet evenly on both sides, and you should be good to go. And then you do the same in the back. The trick for trying to get the roof over the top of the frame. I laid it all out, white side up. You'll see the straps are there and there. So this right here is 17 feet from here to here, and then over is quite a bit. I'm sure it's well over 20 feet. Just covering the whole frame. So the way you do it, though, or at least I'm doing it, I didn't understand the instructions, was to, you know, use a ladder and pull this up to the apex and clamp it in place. And now I'm going to do the same thing and start bringing it over the side here, and then clamp it in place if I can over there or somewhere as far as I can get it, and then you know, work on this end and start bringing it over, and then once I can just stand there without a ladder, I'll just pull it all the way over. So hopefully that makes sense. Okay guys, at this point in the build, I'm less than 3 hours into this build, and we have the entire frame up and the tarps on and the ratchet straps tightened down. It's pretty good shape. The next part I'm going to do is put these 2x4s as kind of a lattice structure, and as a way of, we're going to put bricks underneath and on top of, so that it holds the entire structure down when this is ready. So the idea is we want to attach here and here to these 2x4s. It also, because it's a you know, it makes it a more rigid structure for moving it around, although slightly heavier. So I just drilled a hole, you know, make sure you use cutting oil. Drilled a hole here so that it can go into there, and then these holes are already available. So I just rotate it. So, I mean, 2x4 is not very large, so I only can attach it 2 places here. And for the one on this side, we want to use 3-inch. I use 3-inch, quarter-inch wide lag screws and 3-inch long. You can probably do 1/4-inch lag screws that are 1.5-inch for this side, because the entire depth of this is 1.5 inches. This is not very much, so 1.5 inches is fine here. 3 inches here, because 1.5 inches plus, it's about 1.5 inches here too. You could use washers or something if you want to as well, or you could just use panda-head screws as well, because you don't really need lag screws to hold this amount of weight. At least I live in a place that's not windy, doesn't have many problems. Just, we need enough weight and enough attachment points to make sure that this thing doesn't fly away. Okay, well, I'll show you when it's finished in a sec. I forgot to mention that you're going to want to, for these hex heads, you're going to want to have a socket set and this kind of socket adapter. Or, I mean, you can use a ratchet to do this stuff, but it's easier to, if you use it an impact or just a screwdriver with this attachment to it, and then you can just put the socket right on. Now it's ready to do it. I wouldn't overdo it, but just be careful and go slow, right? The other thing that I forgot to mention is that to drill the hole through the metal, I mean, this is obvious to some of you, but you're going to want to use a titanium bit or a carbide bit, not the standard like black oxide. They'll probably still work, but it's better to do that. And you want to use a cutting oil as well. Cutting oil you can just buy, or you can just, I use 3-in-1 oil, which is not a cutting oil. It's just some kind of lubricant, helps. You're also going to want to pre-drill these holes into the wood for both cases on both sides, because you don't want to split the wood. As the wood, right, it's near the end, and these are pretty big lag screws, so you're going to want to pre-drill. You're going to want to use eye screws for this part. This is going to hold down the paracord, which is holding down the sacrificial layer of tarp. These are a little heavier duty than you need, but the idea is you want to pre-drill a hole because we're so near the end, and make it a little bit nearer to the end because you don't want this to come up too much. Screw it in a little bit. Now, I also found this idea from somebody on YouTube. If I can find it again, I'll link it. It's actually quite hard to twist this yourself, so you can just use a drill with another hook lag screw. Go like this, and it'll do the turning for you. So now that's secure and ready to have the paracord put in, and that is it. Okay, for putting the sacrificial tarp layer, that's the next step and the last step. The idea is that you want to buy this 19 by 19, doesn't matter, somewhere around this size tarp. This is the only one that I could find at Harbor Freight. They didn't sell the heavier duty one, so this is a 4 mil. But again, this is a sacrificial layer. It's going to last, you know, if it's in the sun, 2 years, and then you toss it. If it's in, it might even only last 1 year, depending upon it. But the point is, it protects the underlying tarp. So you'll also want paracord, a 50 foot. You're going to cut this in half, you know, try to make it as even as possible, and we're going to reuse it for two purposes. One is to help pull this over the top, especially if you're doing it with one person. It's pretty much impossible to do it without some form of ability to pull it over. And so you'll attach this to the corner grommets, each 25 foot part, pull it over, and then once you got it in the place that you want, which I'll show you, you use the paracord to attach it to the hook or eye screws that you've put in place. And I'll show you the final product in a moment. So guys, this is the final product. Have the tarp over the edges, coming slightly over on the front part of it. You probably could move it a little ways backwards and have the excess in the back if you want to make it look a little bit cleaner. The thing is, you have this paracord going through these grommets down to the eye screws and all the way back and attached. The other thing you can do back here is to kind of keep things, not very good video, but to keep things clean is you can take this one for example, pull it taut, and then another string or line that goes to the other side, so it looks, you know, clean across this back. All right. The attachment point here is not the best because it doesn't go around. If you had longer paracord, if you got like a 75 footer, then the better way to do it is to have it go through this last grommet and then over to the other side, to the other eye screw on the other side, and same thing, crisscrossing. But, you know, the main purpose of this is we have the sacrificial layer on top. It's protecting the roof, which is most important because that gets exposed to the sun the most. And there are more benefits than this, like you don't have to clean the top anymore. You clean or just throw away the tarp. The other aspect is it actually has more insulation, so you don't have as much condensation on the inside. I noticed that it would drip occasionally onto my equipment, but after the second layer it doesn't do that anymore, so that's great. And then of course, right, the UV protection from the extra layer is good. You might also want to, again, you know, up here, even though you need to be able to open this up in order to make sure that these flaps don't flap around, you could do another string from here to here. And then, like I said, on the front you don't want this big overhang. Pull it back a little ways that way. That's it. You know, we see the wood in place. We'd get this on bricks up off the ground once I get the final location that I want this at. We have 4 people move it into place, and we now have something that'll last a lot longer than 2 years where the tarp will degrade. This will last quite a long time. Thanks for watching and listening.